Hi, welcome to Frame by Frame, a series celebrating the dynamic voices of filmmakers across New York City. I'm Alexandra Alex Uhas, your host for today's conversation. Joining me are three remarkable filmmakers from CUNY Queer Portraits, an informal sampling of artists and activists from across CUNY dedicated to elevating queer experiences. I'm thrilled to introduce them. Samantha Alvarez is a filmmaker and painter with degrees from City College. An alum of notable fellowships, Samantha is the director of In the Body. Eden Martinez is a Nuyorican queer filmmaker centering women, LGBTQ+ and POC folks through a jubilant and aesthetically harmonistic lens. Eden is the director of In and Out. Mariano Weinstein is a filmmaker, composer, and professor at Hunter College and LaGuardia Community College. Mariano is the director of The Animal in You. I'm excited to have a film in the showcase as well. I'm a distinguished professor at Brooklyn College and the producer of Juanita Mohammed Sapansky's film, I Want to Leave a Legacy. And now, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me here on Frame by Frame. I'm excited for this conversation. Let's start by learning about your films in the Queer Portraits Showcase. Samantha, I'd love to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about what your film In the Body is about?
Yes, In the Body is a poetic film that my mother and I collaborated on together in an attempt to heal a long-term void in our relationship. In the film, we revisit some childhood trauma that my mother experienced in order to take the first step towards her healing process.
Did you find that process of making a film with your mom helped?
Well, we have become a lot closer after making the film. I find that even just asking her about her story and then her wanting to make the film was a big step in her healing process. So I feel like we definitely mended a lot of wounds that we had in our relationship since I was a child, but I feel like for her, she's grown so much, and it's been a powerful experience.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
I think a lot of us here believe that film can be generative and healing and recuperative, and you really see that in your film. I wonder why you felt like you wanted to experiment with a more poetic or unique style in the film, and how that helped you, the work you were doing with your mom, but also your own expression.
That's a great question, because the film was actually going to start out as a documentary with reenactments, not like exact reenactments of her trauma, but having a child actor and adult actors kind of representing characters in her life. But I felt like it wasn't appropriate at the time when she told me her story through the interview. I felt like maybe taking an approach where I was having her reenact her feelings in those moments as herself was a little more powerful, and also a little more respectful to the wounds that she was reopening.
Yeah. Because
I didn't want to bring in people just kind of playing out scenarios or moments. I wanted to just hear her story and be an active listener. So putting myself in the film too was interesting, but I wasn't sure if I should have done it. But I definitely did it because I wanted to be present, experience this moment, this big moment for her making this film. I thought it was brave of her, but also I knew it was going to be hard. So I took the more poetic approach because I started thinking about ways that I don't have to literally represent things. I can be more symbolic or metaphorical about it. And then I thought about phone calls because they're long distance. And I thought of our relationship and how distant it is. Even though I live with her, it still feels like there's this cord, or like we're tied by a string in the same space, or we're speaking in the same space, but like we don't really know each other as well as we should, or I feel like we should. So I wanted to play with, the table and the phones and color and just two of everything, because it's two of us. And yeah, it just ended up becoming something I didn't expect, but I'm proud of it.
Well, you know, you both are very vulnerable in the film. She has a very painful story to tell, but many of us believe that those kinds of traumas are intergenerational, and so you're carrying that as well. So did you heal at all in this encounter?
I'm still healing. I think for her, I wanted to see her take that first step, because, yeah, I was carrying her trauma too, but I knew she was the one carrying it heavier than I was. Mm-hmm. So I suggested trauma therapy for her. She went, and she's still doing it now. I think that's huge. Myself, I'm still kind of reflecting on the trauma that I have, but in this film, in the body, I wanted it to be about her, and just subtle things about me, like, you know, missing my mother, or wanting to know more about her, wanting to connect with her, but my story's for another film. So I wanted to just keep it on her.
Thanks, Samantha. Let's take a look at a clip from Samantha's In the Body.
When I was 15, he told me, oh, now we could have a kid. And that's when I said, okay, this doesn't sound right. My mother's sister-in-law was coming from Puerto Rico. I started talking to her, and I said, I want to go with you to Puerto Rico. But I never said what happened to me, because he threatened that he would kill my family if I spoke. When I left, I used to write letters to my mother. And I said to her, if she doesn't leave him, I'm not coming back.
Did she leave?
Yes, she did.
Thanks, Samantha, for that. And Eden, it's time for us to have a little conversation.
I'm still hung up on tied by a string. I'm like, oh.
I know, you know, and also like that old technology. It's such an interesting way to do something new. Speaking of old things coming out, man, it's hard to believe that's still a thing. Can you tell us a little bit about In and Out?
Yeah, so In and Out follows 5 characters. It's a short documentary where they're reflecting on their coming out experiences, and it's across age, sex, gender, and sexual orientation. And I wanted to, you know, explore the through lines and obviously a lot of the crossover that happens in those experiences.
And you start out in this kind of like gentle, and like there's a little air in the beginning where you're seeing everybody get ready, we meet the characters, they're all very beautiful. Why did you give us that time and space before they begin to talk on camera?
Yeah, I mean, the film, first I'm in the film, so there's this part for me where I was trying to explore my own coming out experience, right? And I wanted to center it with humanity, and for me, humanity and authenticity are so tied together. I feel like society has become so perfectionist-oriented, where everything has to be, especially in film sometimes, right? Things need to feel perfect, and I liked that we start by feeling like we're in the room with them and getting to see something that's not perfect.
Over the course of its rather short time, we learned quite a bit and some intimate things about your characters, about these real people. What did you learn that was helpful for you as a queer person in America at this time from your subjects? Yeah, man, I mean, so much. I mean, I think our stories and lives our lived experiences were different, but the emotional impact of feeling in the closet, feeling like there was this part of you that was hidden that you had to protect, that feeling I felt come through so strongly and really helped me understand and feel less alone, which I think so much of my queer experience was this like kind of feeling isolated, and that perception of isolation really, you know, kept me disconnected, I think, from
community, society, honestly, probably more so from myself. So that was a really incredible thing to recognize, that that the emotion, the feeling of it, how powerful it can be, and how powerful it is in recognizing that we're not alone and that these are very shared experiences.
And also just how necessary it is to come out, because
Yes.
speaking of holding secrets, that's very similar to you, that it's just, it corrodes you from the inside. And until that secret is revealed, it's harmful to you, but also to the people you love. It is a little painful for me, someone who has been out since I was in my 20s, that it's still so hard.
Yeah.
Historically, we would think that there had been these kinds of gains, and I wonder how you think about that, given the difference between our ages and a long history of queer media and activism in this country.
Oh, that's a big question.
It is.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think of this not just as a queer person. I think of this as a Puerto Rican, as like a person who my family moved here from Puerto Rico, and I have those like touch points, right? So, and I think there's a pendulum of things that we make these strides and then we go, and we're seeing it so much right now with things like the DEI rollbacks, right? Quote unquote DEI, which has benefited so many people. Like, we move forward and we move backwards, but how we sit in it and choose to maintain our perspective, maintain our joy, hold on to our voice. I feel like that's kind of the central thing to kind of capture, is not to minimize ourselves, not to make ourselves smaller, because I think that's the kind of the pull, is like, what happens when the world is scary for a person representing like me? Well, I think the only thing worse would be going further back into the closet. That would be scarier, just kind of cutting myself off from my identity.
I think that by being a subject of the film yourself and making yourself as vulnerable as your subjects, which again you do in your film, you model for us that there's solidarity and that there's power in being vulnerable as well as honest.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at a clip from In and Out.
About, I would say, it was the year 2010 or 2009 or 2010 when I had a partner of mine actually make that decision for me and text my mom that I was gay.
I'm so sorry.
I felt like I was robbed of, that decision of making, sorry. Whew. I knew this was gonna happen. She was confused just as much as I was. I knew that she didn't accept it, but she loved me. She didn't treat me any different. And so that was just part of my life that I knew that she couldn't be a part of. And unfortunately, I never got to have that conversation with her.
Thank you, Eden. And Mariano, hi.
Hi.
You have a feature documentary in our series, and I would love to hear more about your film called The Animal in You.
Yes, so The Animal in You follows a famous classical singer, that's the contratenor Andreas Scholl, as he honors his mentor, Richard Levitt, tracing the formative guidance that shaped his voice and artistic journey.
I wonder how you came to this story. How do you know these people? Why did you want to tell it?
It's really a friend's project. So I get a phone call one day, many years ago at this point, from Dr. Tamar Halperin. It's one of my best friends, and later on the wife of Andreas Scholl. And she says, Andreas is going to do this film about his mentor. Would you be interested to direct it? It's all about music, and of course there was no hesitation. But it's really a friend's project. We did it to preserve the legacy of Richard, but we didn't even think that it would be a film that would get attention or an award and so on. So it was surprising.
It's interesting that you call it a friends project because the other two pieces are also family projects, friends project. My project is a friends project. And that's not a word that we use all that much in filmmaking. So, like, where's the heart of that for you? Like, what does it mean to make a friends project as opposed to the other kinds of things you might make?
It's a great question. I think all of my films live within community. This particular one is, well, these are friends, so it's more than a community. But other films always live in a certain community context. Parallel to the industry, I would say, not really seeking much to be part of the industry, but really to serve those members of the community. I think that cinema has that capacity as well.
But it's interesting compared to the other two films because these men are both a little bit more like circumspect, you know? They are saying emotional things, but there's something also professional about them. They're both performers.
Yeah.
And so you, as a filmmaker, have to crack that a little bit, I think.
Yes, there are many nuances that are very subtle. Everything is being told through a conversation about music. And there was also, at one point for me, a directorial decision. I had sound bites that were more personal about their personal life, but in the end I found that focusing on music and let that kind of illustrate their relationship would be the strongest choice. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful way to introduce the film to our audience. Let's take a look at a clip from The Animal in You.
Countertenors are in love with their own voice. Let's face it, as a young countertenor, you are aware that you produce this gorgeous sound, angelic sound. Women fall in love with you because you have this beautiful voice. Men fall in love with you because you have this voice. Isn't it wonderful? I have this beautiful voice. And for a while, you live on the beauty of your sound. You sing a dramatic piece, but you're mainly concerned about singing it beautifully, presenting your beautiful voice. And then you need a teacher who tells you, hey, fair enough, until here, you young singer, you're 23, 24 now, be aware there's a purpose of what you sing. There's a meaning that wants, a message that wants to be communicated. And you singing beautifully might not do the trick. So if you sing something dramatic, the energy needs to be motivated and it needs to have a depth and the animal quality of the voice. And it's not necessarily a beautiful sound.
Thank you, Mariano, for your film. And I mean, as crazy as it is, I also have a film in the showcase. I'm so happy that I do. It's a short video that I made called I Want to Leave a Legacy. And I produced it and shot it in collaboration, in deep collaboration with a friend. I could say at one point I was her mentor, but that was a long time ago. Her name is Juanita Mohammed Sapansky, and she was a woman that I met when I made my doctoral research project, a video called We Care, a video for care providers of people affected with AIDS. And I made it at the Brooklyn AIDS Task Force, and she was a participant in that project in the early 90s. And that's when she first got her hand on a camera. And then her hand was on a camera for the rest of her life. She thought of herself as an activist media maker. She sometimes used the word DIY media maker. She sometimes used the word community media maker. And over a long career, she made work about being Black, Latina. Also, she was disabled, and so she made disability rights films with her husband, Henry. And she made tons of AIDS activist media with me, and we collaborated many times. As she was dying, she asked me to come to visit her at Kohler Rehab Center and shoot a video. And I went to her bedside twice and let her speak, because that's what she asked of me. And very quickly, with an editor, Matt Hiddle, edited the footage that we shot on her request, and that became the video that I'm going to share called I Want to Leave a Legacy. Another amazing piece that Juanita made, which is one of my favorite pieces of video, is called Homosexuals, One Child's Point of View. And it's made in collaboration with her daughter, whose name is Jahanara Jazzy Zaman King. And not only do I love that film, Jazzy's now an adult woman. I've made work with Jazzy. I've made work with Jazzy's daughter, Farah. And I've stayed connected to the family. I'm so excited to be part of the showcase because when Juanita asked me to videotape her on her deathbed, and I then asked her, well, what would you like me to do with this video? One of the things she said was that she wanted it to be on cable television. So it's such an honor, and it's so important that I got to do her right. She also said she wanted me to show it in libraries and to community centers, and I've already done that. Let's take a look at a clip from I Want to Leave a Legacy.
I took the camera on the outside and I went out of my mind.
You did.
I was all over the screen, telling anybody I could see, can I interview you? I didn't know how to interview, but I was interviewing, asking people all about Wade while I'm shooting the camera.
I'm really, all the different kind of people that's here, it's really great.
From BATF, I got a call from GMHC. And I came in and they asked me, what would I like to do? And I said, work with the clients. And they said, well, we don't got room right now. But we do have room in our audiovisual department with Jean Calamusto, who was very into what she was doing. She was gung-ho. So I said, sure. So I started researching with her. That was nice. And then she said, would you like to make movies? And I said, yeah.
Thank you all for sharing your work with me. We have a wonderful collection of films, and I'd like to share with the audience a little bit about how CUNY Queer Portraits came about. CUNY Queer Portraits started at the College of Staten Island and was envisioned by Edward Miller, a professor of media and culture. Seeing both a need and an opportunity to foreground the range of subjects and creative practices emerging from queer media makers, Miller set out to create a space where that work could be seen and celebrated. Rather than functioning as a formal organization, CUNY Queer Portraits represents students, faculty, and alum across CUNY who are committed to amplifying queer experiences reflected in the showcase you will see. I wonder if each of you could quickly tell us what you're working on right now. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm working on a documentary titled Chamber Music, Sound in the Rooms. And that's a process that has been going on for like 5 years now. I'm shooting it in the Lower East Side and Avenue D, actually, and the rehab center by the Nonprofit Educational Alliance, another great nonprofit to mention here. And as I said before, I'm working there as a music teacher. I'm meeting with patients, and slowly but surely, and with consent, a documentary emerged from that process that firstly served the community, but I think it will have value in other contexts. So I can imagine other audiences watching that film and finding important information, but also the kind of emotional experience that is rewarding.
Thank you. How about you, Sam?
I'm really just writing right now, a lot of stuff. I'm revisiting some scripts that I've written because I want to shift into fiction. But I'm also just working in film, so trying to figure out new ideas. Not anything particular in the moment.
Stewing.
Yeah, just doing.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Eden?
Yeah, I'm wrapping up an edit on a film called Hold On to the Light, which started as my college thesis, and now I'm expanding it into a longer form documentary that follows the artistic process of a queer artist who's also my fiance and partner. So, and yeah, they had created a play called They Were Once, which is like a dance theater work. So we did a short doc about that in light of creating work in this time, moment in time for queer people, and how that can be difficult, transformative, important. And I'm writing a feature film about a special election which was inspired by I had voted in a special election. So it's kind of evaluating power and access to power over the course of like a comedy, dramedy context.
And I had told you all that I recently completed an experimental feature called Please Hold, which revisits the tape that I made with Juanita in conversation with a deathbed video that I shot of my best friend when he was dying of AIDS a long time ago. So it's a piece about grief and holding on and how community can allow us to manage heavy burdens. Okay, our time has come to a close. It was such a treat to speak with all three of you and to learn with you and to watch your films. Thank you, Mariano. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Eden, for sharing space with me and making your work. And thank you all for joining our conversation. You can catch their films and many others from Queer Portraits on Frame by Frame, found on CUNY TV's YouTube channel and the CUNY TV app. Enjoy watching.